Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to teach you how to make this crochet mesh crop top. And what you'll need is some DK weight yarn that is a blend of cotton. I use Paintbox yarns cotton mix DK, and I highly recommend it if you can get your hands on it, but if you can't, any other cottony DK weight yarn will do. Just make sure that it has a little bit of a slip to it so that your yarn and not very stiff, because you don't want a stiff top. You want it to be nice and flowy. And you'll also need a size F or 3.75 millimeter crochet hook, and a pair of scissors, and a yarn needle to weave in all of the ends. So, oh, and you'll also need it for seaming. So this is very important. So if you have all of these materials, get ready to follow along with me. I'll walk you through all of the steps from the foundation chain to the finishing touches.
So the first step in crocheting this top is to make the back panel, i.e. the back of the top, which is a simple rectangle. So we'll begin by making a slip knot and then chaining our foundation chain. So the pattern will tell you how many chains to make based on the size of the top that you're making. I'm chaining 77 for this one because I'm making the extra small size. And to keep this video short, I'm also assuming that you know the crochet basics, such as how to chain, how to single crochet, double crochet, and make a slip stitch. Okay, now that we have a foundation chain, we can begin with the first row, which is super easy. So what we're going to do is double crochet in the fourth chain from the hook. And notice that I'm crocheting into the back bump of the stitches. So I'm not crocheting into the V part of the chain, I'm crocheting into the bump on the back. And I'm doing this because it'll come in handy at the end when we are making the trim of the top. So the 3 skip chains count as the first stitch, and then we're going to double crochet in the next chain as well. So that's how we start off this row. And then we're going to begin our repeat. So the repeat is to chain one, skip the next chain, and then double crochet in the next 3 chains. So we're just going to continue this all the way down. So just keep chaining one, skipping the next chain, and then double crocheting in the next 3 chains all the way down to the end of the row. And you should end with 3 double crochets without any chains remaining. So if that doesn't happen, then you might have made a mistake somewhere along the way. But yeah, so just continue along, and then when you reach the end of the row, you can chain 4 and turn your work. Now for row 2. So before we begin, I want to mention that the chain 4 counts as the first double crochet and chain 1 space. So the first step for row 2 is to skip the first 2 double crochets since the chain 4 covers them, and then we're going to double crochet into the next double crochet. And now that we've done that, the repeat begins for row 2. So the repeat for row 2 is double crochet in the next chain 1 space, and then double crochet in the next double crochet, chain 1, and skip the next double crochet, and then double crochet in the next double crochet. So we repeat these steps all the way until the end of the row. So again, what you need to do is double crochet in the next chain one space, double crochet in the next double crochet, chain one, skip the next double crochet, and double crochet in the next double crochet. So I know this sounds like a lot of words, but once you get the flow going, it's not that complicated. What we're doing is we're just offsetting the group of 3 double crochets from the row below. So we're working into the center of the gap there to create the mesh pattern. So we're just going to repeat this until the end of the row and then chain 3 and turn. One thing I want to point out is that when you reach the end of the row, you'll notice that you had the turning chain from the row below, which is a chain 3. So that counts as the last double crochet. So you want to work your last double crochet into the top of that turning chain. So once you've worked the last double crochet, just chain 3 to finish off the row, turn your work, and we're ready to begin row 3. Okay, so row 3 is very much like row 1, except we are not working into the foundation chain this time. Again, before we begin, note that the turning chain counts as the first double crochet of the row. So this will come in handy when you're working your way back again and you want to work into the final double crochet. Remember that it's the turning chain. And now to create the mesh pattern, we're going to double crochet into the first 2 stitches, which are the next chain 1 space and double crochet. And then the repeat begins. So we chain 1, skip the next double crochet in the following double crochet, and double crochet in the next chain 1 space, and then work the third double crochet in the next double crochet, and that's it. So continue all the way along till the end of the row, and then once you reach the end of the row, chain 4 and turn your work. And now all you need to do is repeat rows 2 and 3 until you have a rectangle that matches the measurements in the pattern. And don't forget, you can find the link to the pattern in the description below. And it's free on my website, which is supported by ads. But if you would like the ad-free version, which is a PDF file, I have links on my website for how to purchase that on Ravelry or through my website. Now that the back panel is done, we can begin working on the front panel. So the front panel is almost exactly like the back panel, except for the last 4 rows. So create your front panel until you only have 4 rows remaining, and then meet me back here and I will show you how to finish it off. Okay, I have only 4 rows remaining on my front panel to make it the same length as the back panel. And I'll begin my repeat of row 2, except this time we aren't going to crochet all the way to the end of the row. Instead, I'm just repeating the steps 6 more times after completing them once. So the number of times that you need to repeat the steps after the star will be based on the size of the top that you're making. And when following the pattern, you choose the number in the brackets that matches your size. So for example, if you're making a medium top, you would use the 3rd number in the sequence and repeat the steps 8 more times. So follow along and repeat the steps until you've completed the number of times for your size. And then only chain 1 this time and turn your work. Now what we're going to do is slip stitch into the current stitch and the next 4 stitches. And then we're going to chain 3 and double crochet in the next chain 1 space and in the next double crochet. And then we're going to work the same repeat that we were working for row 3 throughout this top. So chain 1, skip the next double crochet in the next double crochet, and in the next chain 1 space, and in the next double crochet after that. And then we're just going to work all the way down to the end of the row, chain 4, and turn. So for the third row, we're just going to work it like the first row of the shaping of the neckline, except this time we're not going to go as far down. So we're going to repeat from the star 2 less times than we did for the first row. So work your way down and chain 1 and turn, and then we'll work the final row of the right side of the front panel. And you'll be happy to know that row 4 is exactly like row 2 of the neckline shaping. So all you need to do is slip stitch in the same stitch and the next 4 stitches, and then continue on down just like you did for row 2. And then when you reach the end of this row, you can just fasten off and you're done the right side of the neckline for the front panel. So now after this, we're going to work on the left side of the neckline, which is very similar, except we're shaping it in the opposite direction. For the left side, we're going to count 13 stitches down from the last stitch on the right side. And then this will be the same for all sizes. So for all sizes, we're going to count 13 stitches down. And then join the yarn there to begin the first row. So once you've joined your yarn, chain 4 and begin row 1 of the left side, which is the same as row 2 from the bottom half. So we skip the next double crochet and then double crochet in the next double crochet to begin. And then work the repeated section all the way down to the end of the row. And now that we've reached the end of the row, we can chain 3, turn our work, and begin the second row of the left side. Now we're crocheting the left side of the neckline to mirror the right side, which means that the last stitch of row 2 needs to be 4 stitches before the end of row 1. And I didn't mention it earlier, but every row of the neckline shaping after row 1 is 1 4-stitch repeat less than the row before. So we'll crochet this row just like row 3 from the bottom half, and only repeat the section after the star however many times the pattern calls for the size you're making. And since I'm making the extra small, I'm going to repeat 5 more times after I've completed it once. And now that there are only 4 stitches remaining, we can chain 1 and turn. For row 3, we need to mirror row 3 on the right side, which means that we will slip stitch into the current stitch and in the next 4 stitches before we make the turning chain. And now we can make the chain 4 turning chain that would have been made from the row before, and then we can crochet all the way down to the end, just like the first row of this side. And at the end of the row, chain 3, turn, and we're ready to work the final row of the left side of the front panel. So if you haven't already guessed it by now, we're just going to crochet this row exactly like row 2 of this side. So this means we crochet until the last 4 stitches, and then we can fasten off right there. So I want you guys to finish this row, and then we can move on to connecting the panels and the final steps of making your top. Now that both panels are complete, the majority of the work is done. The next step is to place them on top of each other and seam the shoulders using a whip stitch or any other seaming method that you prefer.
I have seamed up my shoulders, and I'll show you what it looks like at this point. So I'm just throwing it over my neck. So we're going to whip stitch all the way up till about here. Yeah, so seam up the sides using a whip stitch and then meet me back here and I will show you the next step.
Okay, with the seaming out of the way, we're finally seeing the top come together. And now we can crochet the trim around the bottom. We're going to do this by attaching the yarn at one corner. So find one of the side seams and then insert your hook right into the first stitch that's available next to the seam. And this isn't an exact science, so don't worry too much about where you start. So I just chose one of the chain spaces between the 3 double crochets where I inserted my hook for the first stitch, but you can choose whichever spot you like this close to the seam. And then once you've done that, chain 1 and then single crochet right back into that spot. And I also want to mention that remember when we crocheted into the back bumps of the foundation chain? So we were doing that because the V part of the chain will stay free for us to work the bottom trim into now. And this trick not only keeps the edge looking clean, but it also makes it easy to see exactly where each stitch goes. Plus, I find that when I try to work the trim into any other part of the chain, it leaves an annoying gap between the top and the trim, which is not exactly the look we're going for. And now we're going to single crochet only into the chains that have a double crochet coming out of them. So we're not going to single crochet into the chain spaces. We're just working into the chains that have a double crochet worked into them from row 1. So basically what we're doing is we're single crocheting into every 3 out of 4 stitches of the top. And we're doing this just to cinch in the waist a bit so that it isn't too wide around the bottom. So work your way all the way around until you're back to the very first single crochet. So now we've worked 1 round and we're back at the very first single crochet. We are going to slip stitch into that first single crochet. And then again, chain 1 and single crochet back into the stitch to begin row 2. Or sorry, round 2. And for this round, we're just working the single crochets into the single crochets from the round below. So we don't need to skip any stitches this time. This round is much easier. So continue working around and you're going to make 2 more rounds just like this. So you'll have a total of 3 rounds of single crochet around the bottom trim. And this will cinch in the waist and complete the look. And this is what the bottom trim will look like once you've completed 3 rounds. And now we're ready to work on the sleeves. So we're going to work in the round again for the sleeves in single crochet. And we're just making a trim around the sleeves as well. But this time we're not skipping any stitches because we don't want to cinch in the sleeves. And when working around the sleeves, we're working into the turning chains that were created at the end of each row of the top. So the best way I found to insert the single crochets is to work 2 single crochets into each turning chain. So it's pretty easy. So attach your yarn into one of the corners at the bottom of the sleeve. And then just like we did for the bottom trim, we're going to chain 1, single crochet right back into that spot, and then work in the round, making 2 single crochets into each turning chain space. And again, once you've worked your way around for 1 round, just like the bottom trim, all you need to do is slip stitch into the first single crochet, chain 1, and then single crochet right back into that stitch and all the way around again. But this time you're just going to work into the single crochets that you made from the first round. And for the sleeves, you're going to work 4 rounds of single crochet. So finish the trim for both sleeves by working 4 rounds of single crochet around the sleeve holes. And then we can finish the trim around the neckline to complete the top. Okay, we're finally on the final step to make the trim around the neckline. So to begin, what you want to do is find a stitch at the back of the neckline. It doesn't have to be like exactly in the middle, but close enough to the middle as you can estimate. Insert your hook into that stitch. So I chose one of the double crochets here. Attach the yarn and chain 1, and then single crochet right back into that stitch. Now we're going to single crochet into every single stitch around the back of the neckline, including the chain 1 spaces. And then once you've reached the shoulder seam and you're working your way towards the front, you'll notice that you're working into the turning chain spaces here. So just like with the sleeves, we're going to make two single crochets into the turning chain spaces. So when you're working around the neckline, if it's a normal stitch, you're just going to single crochet into it. And if it's a turning chain, then you're going to make 2 single crochets into it. And so that's it. So work your way around with these rules. And remember, it's not an exact science. So if you feel like you need to add an extra stitch here or there when you're working around the neckline, just go ahead and do it. You can just lay it flat and take a look, and if it looks wonky, remove a stitch or two here or there, or add some. But in general, I found this rule works really well to have 2 single crochets in the turning chains and 1 single crochet in each stitch. Just don't forget to single crochet into the chain 1 spaces as well. And then once you get to the first single crochet, just like before, we're going to join with a slip stitch, chain 1, and single crochet right back into it, and then complete 1 more round by single crocheting into the single crochets from the first round. So once you've done that, you can fasten off, and you can weave in all of your ends. I'm sure you have a ton by now, and your top is complete. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel.